On a contested world, the ground was flat and gray, broken only by metal towers and long lines cut into the earth by old machines. The sky above was pale and still, holding a dull light that never felt warm. Soldiers from many species stood across the open field, separated into loose groups, watching one another in silence. Weapons were held but not raised. Tension lived in the air, heavy and waiting. Among the gathered figures stood a human engineer named Kyle Reed. He was not tall, and he did not wear heavy armor like most of the others. His clothing was simple, built for work rather than battle. A light utility vest covered his chest, marked with small tools and worn edges that showed long use. His boots were scratched, his gloves faded. He looked more like someone meant to fix machines than face soldiers. In Kyle's right hand was a small device. It was dull gray, smooth and plain. There were no glowing parts, no sharp edges, no sign of power. It looked like a tool pulled from a storage box, something meant to measure or adjust, not destroy. Anyone watching closely might wonder why he carried it here at all. Kyle stood quietly, his shoulders relaxed, his breathing slow. He did not stare at the soldiers around him. Instead, his eyes moved calmly across the field, noting positions, distances, and movement. He listened to the hum of distant engines and the faint buzz of energy shields warming nearby. His face showed no fear but no pride either. He was simply present. Across from him stood an alien officer named Saren. Saren was taller than most humans and stood with clear confidence. Her armor covered her completely, layered with plates shaped to fit her form. Soft light moved across its surface, showing active systems at work. Thin lines of energy traced along her arms and legs, forming shields invisible to the eye but strong enough to stop heavy fire. Her helmet rested under one arm, revealing sharp eyes and a small, confident smile. Saren had fought in many battles. She trusted her armor more than anything else. It had never failed her. Every system had backups, and every backup had another layer beneath it. To her, survival was a matter of preparation and power. As Saren's gaze moved across the human group, it settled on Kyle. Her eyes dropped to the device in his hand. She paused, then let out a short laugh. The sound cut through the quiet field, sharp and clear. Several nearby soldiers turned to look. Saren raised her chin slightly, her smile widening. "That is what you bring?" she said, her voice carrying easily. "A tool?" Kyle turned his head and met her gaze. He said nothing. He did not react to the laughter or the attention. His fingers rested lightly around the device, steady and still. Saren laughed again, louder this time. "I have seen human weapons," she continued. "Crude, loud and slow. But this." She shook her head. "This is nothing." She tapped the armor on her chest with one hand. The sound echoed solid and strong. "This suit has faced plasma, shock and force beyond your understanding. It adapts. It learns. It protects." Around her, alien soldiers shifted slightly, some sharing her amusement. A few humans lowered their eyes, feeling the weight of the moment. They had learned long ago that mockery often came before violence. Kyle remained calm. He looked again at the device in his hand, then back at Saren. His expression did not change. Saren stepped forward one pace, clearly unconcerned. "You stand here among warriors," she said. "Yet you carry something meant for repair." Kyle spoke at last, his voice quiet but clear. "It is meant to solve problems." Saren smiled sharply. "Then you are in the wrong place." Kyle did not argue. He did not raise the device. He simply stood, waiting. The field grew quiet again, but the laughter lingered in the air. To Saren, the moment was already decided. She saw no threat in the human engineer or his simple tool. In her mind, power had already chosen its side. Kyle knew better. He had built the device himself, not for war but for understanding. He had learned long ago that the strongest systems often failed in simple ways. Complexity hid weakness. Layers created blind spots. The device in his hand did not fight armor. It spoke to it. As the wind moved gently across the field, Kyle waited, patient and steady, while confidence stood tall before him, unaware of how fragile it truly was. Saren stood with easy pride, her armor catching the pale light of the sky. She turned slightly so others could see the smooth plates and glowing lines that marked her rank. Her voice carried across the field, calm and sharp, meant to teach as much as to mock. She spoke of past battles where her armor had stood firm against heat, shock, and force. She spoke of tests run for years, of systems that watched themselves and corrected errors before danger could grow. To her, failure was a story from the past, something already defeated. Kyle listened without moving. He did not cross his arms or shift his feet. His posture stayed open, balanced, and relaxed. The small device rested in his hand like a quiet thought. He let Saren speak because he understood something she did not. People who trusted a system too much stopped listening to it. They stopped asking questions. They stopped noticing small changes that mattered. Saren's words drew a loose circle of listeners. Alien soldiers leaned closer, curious and entertained. Some humans watched from a distance, worried but silent. A few had seen Kyle work before, repairing old machines that others said were beyond saving. They knew his patience. They knew his habit of waiting until a problem revealed itself. Saren finished a long explanation with a light laugh. She lifted one hand and tapped the armor near her shoulder. A soft tone answered, showing systems awake and ready. "This suit has never failed me," she said. "It learns from every strike. It adapts faster than fear. Your people build clever tools, yes, but clever is not enough." Kyle nodded once. That may be true. The answer seemed to amuse her more. She tilted her head, studying him as if he were a puzzle already solved. "You agree?" she said. "Good. Then you understand why this ends quickly." Kyle did not answer that. Instead, he looked down at the device and made a small adjustment. He turned a narrow ring, then pressed a flat surface with his thumb. The movement was gentle and careful, the way a person might tune an instrument. There was no sound, no light. The device remained plain and quiet. Saren watched with interest now. Her laughter faded into a sharp smile. "You prepare it like a tool," she said. "Because that is what it is." "Yes," Kyle replied. "It is a tool." She raised a brow. "Then tell me, human. What does it fix?" Kyle paused. He looked up at the sky, then at the field, then back to Saren. His eyes were steady. "Mistakes," he said. A few aliens laughed again, softer this time. Some exchanged looks, unsure whether to be amused or curious. Saren waved a hand. "We all fix mistakes," she said. "With better armor, better weapons, better plans." Kyle did not argue. He took one slow step to the side, changing his angle by only a little. It was a habit from years of work, moving to see a system from a new view. The device shifted with him, always level, always ready. Saren noticed the movement. Her eyes followed him, sharp and alert despite her confidence. She felt no danger, but she felt interest. "You believe position matters," she said. "It does," Kyle replied. She smiled again. "Then choose your position well." Kyle stopped and waited. He watched the subtle signs around him, the soft pulse of energy along Saren's armor, the slight delay between one system and the next, the way the glow changed with her breathing. He was not searching for weakness in the usual sense. He was listening for patterns that did not fit. The device in his hand was not a weapon in the way others understood. It did not burn or break. It did not strike. It listened to. It spoke a quiet language made of timing and response. Kyle had built it to test systems without harming them, to reveal hidden paths and forgotten links. In battle, it was often ignored. That was its strength. Saren continued to speak, filling the space with confidence. She told stories of enemies who had underestimated her armor and paid the price. She spoke of lessons learned and victories earned. The words flowed easily, like a story told many times. Kyle let the story pass over him. He waited for a pause, a breath, a moment when attention shifted. He had learned that the right moment was rarely loud. It was often quiet and small. Around them, the field remained tense but still. No one moved to attack. Orders had not been given. It was a standoff shaped by pride and patience. Kyle adjusted the device again, barely moving his fingers. He felt a change, slight but clear. The device responded, not with sound but with resistance, like a lock turning the right way. He did not activate it yet. He waited. Saren noticed his focus. Her smile thinned. "You are calm," she said. "Even now." Kyle met her eyes. "So are you." She laughed softly. "Because I am protected." Kyle said nothing. He watched. He waited. Other aliens leaned closer, interest replacing mockery. They had expected fear, anger, or reckless action. Instead they saw patience. That alone was unusual. Saren took a step forward, then stopped. Her armor adjusted smoothly, shields shifting without effort. She felt safe, in control. "If you wish to test your tool," she said, "do so." "I am curious." Kyle raised the device slightly, not aiming it, simply holding it at chest level. His grip remained loose. He took a slow breath and let it out. The moment had arrived, not because he forced it, but because the system had shown him where to speak. He did not press anything yet. Saren tilted her head, waiting. The field held its breath. Kyle's focus stayed steady. He was not thinking of victory or defeat. He was thinking of balance, of systems working as they should, of what happened when they were asked a question they were not built to answer. He knew others believed he would fail. He felt no need to prove them wrong. He only needed to let the truth appear on its own. The device rested in his hand, quiet and ready, while confidence stood before him, certain and unaware, and the moment stretched, thin and fragile, waiting to break. Kyle finally moved his thumb. It was a small motion, calm and careful, almost easy to miss. There was no sound when the device activated. No light flashed across the field. No heat rose in the air. For a brief moment, nothing seemed to happen at all. Saren smiled wider. A short laugh escaped her, sharp and confident. "That is it?" she asked. Her voice carried clearly. "I felt nothing." Some of the alien soldiers laughed with her. A few humans exchanged uncertain looks. To anyone watching, it appeared exactly as Saren expected. The human had tried and nothing had changed. Kyle did not respond. His eyes stayed on Saren but not on her face. He watched the glow of her armor, the faint rhythm of its systems. He waited. Saren took another step forward, still laughing. "Your tool is broken," she said. "Or perhaps it was never meant for this." Then the glow along her left arm flickered. It was subtle. So small that only someone trained to watch systems would notice. The light dimmed for less than a second, then returned. Saren did not notice it at first. Her smile remained firm, her posture proud. Kyle noticed. The laughter continued around them. One alien soldier shook his head. Another turned away, already bored. Saren lifted her chin and began to speak again, ready to dismiss the moment completely. The glow flickered again. This time Saren paused mid-word. She frowned slightly and glanced at her arm. The light was still there but it was weaker. Not gone. Just quieter. She flexed her fingers. The armor responded, but with a delay so small it would have gone unnoticed by anyone else. Saren noticed. Her smile faded into confusion. "That is strange," she said, more to herself than to Kyle. Kyle remained silent. He did not raise the device. He did not press anything again. He simply held it steady, letting it do what it was designed to do. A soft tone sounded from Saren's armor. Not an alarm. Just a notice. One system adjusting. Then another. The laughter around them began to thin. Saren tapped the armor near her wrist. "Status," she said. There was a pause. Then a simple response tone sounded, flat and neutral. Saren's eyes narrowed. She tapped again, harder this time. "Status," she repeated. The tone answered again, slower now. Kyle watched as the glow along Saren's chest shifted, breaking its smooth pattern. The armor was not breaking. It was turning inward, focusing, trying to understand a signal it was never meant to hear. Saren took a step back. "What did you do?" she asked, her voice no longer amused. Kyle finally spoke. "I asked it a question." Saren stared at him. "That is not possible." Another system went quiet. The glow along her left leg faded completely. The armor there remained solid, but the energy shield around it vanished like a breath in cold air. Saren stumbled slightly, catching herself before she fell. The field went silent. Alien soldiers straightened, their attention sharp and focused. Humans leaned forward, hardly daring to breathe. No one laughed now. Saren's hand moved to a control at her side. She pressed it. Nothing happened. Her armor spoke again, this time with a different tone. Lower. Slower. Systems were shutting down, not in panic but in order. One after another. Like doors closing gently. "No," Saren whispered. She looked down at her chest. The light there dimmed, then faded. The shield around her body collapsed without a sound. The armor remained, but it was just armor now. Heavy. Silent. Saren tried to step back again, but the suit no longer assisted her movement. The sudden weight pulled at her balance. She dropped to one knee, more surprised than hurt. Kyle took a small step forward, not in threat, but in readiness. He kept the device lowered, inactive now. It had already done its work. Saren looked up at him, her eyes wide. Fear flickered there, not of injury but of understanding. "My armor," she said. "It cannot fail." "It didn't fail," Kyle replied gently. "It listened." Around them alien soldiers raised their weapons, uncertain and tense. Human guards did the same, fear rising fast. The moment balanced on a sharp edge. Kyle lifted his free hand, palm open. "No one needs to move," he said calmly. Saren raised one hand as well. "Stand down," she ordered, her voice steady despite the shock in her eyes. Slowly weapons lowered. Saren looked down at herself again. Every active system was silent now. No shield. No adaptive response. No hidden support. Her armor had become a shell. How? She asked quietly. Kyle considered the question. Your systems are perfect at defending against force, he said. Heat, impact, energy. But they rely on constant agreement, constant feedback. I didn't attack them. I introduced a pattern they could not resolve. Saren listened, her breath slow and controlled. You turned them against themselves. Kyle shook his head. No. I let them choose rest. Saren let out a slow breath. Around them, the field remained still, everyone watching her reaction. The confidence that once filled her posture was gone, replaced by careful thought. She removed her helmet fully and set it on the ground. Without the armor's support, the movement took effort. She stood slowly, standing on her own strength. Her gaze met Kyle's. You could have done worse, she said. Yes, Kyle replied. But that was not the point. Saren looked around at the watching soldiers, then back at Kyle. Her voice carried clearly. This human did not break my armor, she said. He showed me its limits. No one spoke. The wind moved gently across the field, carrying dust and quiet. The laughter from moments before felt distant and unreal. Saren straightened her shoulders. Without her armor's glow, she looked smaller but no less commanding. We believed power was loud, she said. We were wrong. Kyle lowered the device fully and clipped it back to his vest. Sometimes, he said, the strongest tools are the ones people ignore. Saren nodded slowly. Around them, soldiers from many worlds stood in silence, watching the moment settle into history. They had expected fire. They had expected force. Instead, they had seen understanding disarm strength without a single strike. The field remained quiet, not from fear but from awe, as everyone realized they had just witnessed a new kind of power, one they had never prepared to face. Saren took another slow step back. The ground felt different under her feet without the quiet support of her armor. Each movement required effort now, reminding her how much she had relied on systems she once believed were part of herself. She was unharmed, but the shock ran deeper than pain. Her breathing stayed calm, trained by years of command, yet her thoughts moved fast and heavy. Kyle noticed the step back and responded by lowering his hand. The small device was no longer raised. He did not move closer. He did not speak in victory. He simply stood where he was, showing clearly that the moment of action had passed. What needed to be shown had already been shown. That choice mattered. Several alien soldiers shifted in place, unsure what to do next. Their training told them to react to threat, but Kyle did not look like one. His posture was relaxed, his hands open, his eyes steady. There was no challenge in him now, only patience. Saren lifted one hand slowly and spread her fingers, a clear sign to wait. Her voice carried across the field, firm despite the weight of what had happened. Hold your positions, she said. Her command was obeyed at once. From the far edge of the field, signals lit up as senior alien leaders observed the scene through sensors and live feeds. What they saw did not match any model they trusted. A human engineer, lightly equipped, standing unharmed before a disabled commander. No explosion. No visible attack. Just silence and confusion. Orders came quickly. All units, halt. A voice echoed across the open ground, amplified and clear. No further action. The tension that had filled the field loosened slightly, like a breath finally released. Weapons were lowered. Defensive systems powered down. The moment shifted from the edge of conflict into something quieter and more difficult to define. Saren turned her head toward the distant command tower, then back to Kyle. Her eyes studied him with new focus. Not as an enemy. Not as a curiosity. But as a problem she had not prepared for. You could have pressed forward, she said. You did not. Kyle nodded once. There was no need. Saren considered that answer. Around them, soldiers listened closely. They had expected dominance to follow weakness. They had expected the human to take advantage. Instead they saw restraint. Saren straightened fully. Without the glow and strength of her armor, she relied on her own posture and voice. This encounter is concluded, she announced. No further tests. No retaliation. Some alien soldiers hesitated, surprised by the tone. Others nodded, accepting the order without question. Humans exchanged quiet looks, unsure whether relief or caution should come first. Saren took a few steps toward the center of the field, careful and deliberate. Kyle did not move. He waited for her to choose the distance, to keep control of the moment. She stopped a few paces away. You did not defeat me, Saren said. You taught me. Kyle met her gaze. I only showed you what was already there. Saren's mouth curved into a small, thoughtful smile. That may be more dangerous than force. Above them, the sky remained pale and still, unchanged by what had just occurred. But below, the meaning of power was shifting. Alien leaders began to speak through secure channels. Their voices were calm but strained, filled with questions and sudden doubt. Reports were exchanged, data reviewed, and systems rechecked. Everything confirmed the same result. The human device had not damaged the armor. It had simply guided it into rest, using logic instead of pressure. That unsettled them. One senior leader, older and cautious, spoke clearly over the shared channel. "Humans do not fight as we expected," she said. "They study." Another replied, "They wait." A third added, "They choose when not to strike." On the field, Saren removed a small control panel from her armor and held it up. The screen remained dark. She looked at it for a moment, then closed her hand around it. "This suit was built to survive enemies," she said quietly. "Not understanding." Kyle listened. He did not interrupt. Saren looked back at the gathered soldiers, alien and human alike. "Strength is not only what breaks," she said. "It is what stops breaking when it no longer must." The words carried farther than she intended. Even those at the edges heard them. Kyle shifted his weight slightly and spoke, his voice calm and plain. "We build tools to solve problems," he said. "Some problems are not enemies." The silence that followed was not empty. It was thoughtful. Alien leaders ordered medical teams to approach, not because Saren was injured, but because procedure demanded it. She waved them off gently. "I am well," she said. "Save your attention for learning." She turned again to Kyle. "Your device," she said. "You designed it for this?" Kyle shook his head. "I designed it to understand systems that grow too complex to trust." Saren nodded slowly. "Then you understand us more than we understood ourselves." The field remained calm as formal statements were prepared. The confrontation was logged, recorded, and marked for review. It would be studied for years, not for tactics but for meaning. Humans did not cheer. They did not rush forward. They stayed where they were, careful and watchful, just as they had always been. Their strength had never been loud. Saren took one last look at her silent armor. Then she reached up and released the final locks. The heavy plates loosened and settled around her frame. With effort, she stepped free, standing without any barrier between herself and the world. That act drew quiet attention. To remove armor on a contested field was unthinkable to many. It was a gesture of trust, or at least of pause. Kyle noticed and inclined his head slightly in acknowledgement. High above, the alien leaders finalized their orders. The halt would stand. Negotiation teams would replace patrols. Observation would replace aggression. Not because humans had forced the change, but because they had revealed a truth that could not be ignored. Saren spoke once more, her voice steady and clear. "This engagement ends here," she said. "We will reassess our approach to humanity." No one challenged her. Kyle clipped the device securely back into his vest. Its role was finished for now. He felt no pride, only relief that it had worked as intended. As soldiers slowly dispersed, the field returned to stillness. The moment would echo far beyond this place, carried by reports, memory, and quiet reflection. Saren stood watching Kyle as he turned to leave, blending back into the group of humans without ceremony. He did not look back. For the first time in her long service, Saren understood that power did not always announce itself. Sometimes it waited, listened, and chose not to strike again. And that knowledge changed everything. The encounter did not end on the field. It moved outward, carried by signals, records, and quiet conversations. Within hours, reports traveled through alien networks and human channels alike. By the next cycle, the story had reached distant stations, trading hubs, and council worlds far from the contested planet. Each version sounded slightly different, but the core remained the same. A human had faced advanced armor with a simple device, and the armor had fallen silent without a fight. At first, many dismissed it as exaggeration. Stories often grew in the telling. But then the data followed. Clear readings. Clean recordings. System logs that showed no damage, no attack, only controlled shutdown. Engineers from many species studied the files with growing concern. They replayed the moment again and again, slowing it down, isolating signals, searching for hidden force. They found none. What unsettled them most was not what Kyle had done, but what he had not done. He had not rushed forward. He had not taken advantage. He had not tried to win more than the moment required. To many cultures built on dominance and display, this restraint felt foreign and difficult to measure. Humanity's image began to change. They were no longer spoken of as weak or loud or careless. Instead, new words appeared in reports. patient, observant, precise, dangerous only when ignored. Respect grew slowly, not as fear but as caution mixed with curiosity. Saren was called before her leaders days later. She stood in a quiet chamber, no armor, no weapons, only her rank markings and her voice. Around her sat elders, commanders, and thinkers who had shaped policy for generations. They did not accuse her. They listened. She told the story plainly. She did not soften her laughter or hide her confidence. She described the moment it faded, replaced by confusion, then understanding. She spoke of the device, the silence, and the choice Kyle made to stop. I underestimated them, Saren said at last. Not because they were stronger but because they were simpler. One elder leaned forward. Explain. Saren folded her hands. We build systems to answer force with force. Humans build tools to ask questions. When our systems could not answer, they chose rest. The chamber stayed quiet. Another leader spoke. And the human? He left, Saren replied. He did not ask for reward. He did not ask for apology. That, more than anything else, shifted the room. Policies changed slowly after that, but they did change. Human engineers were invited to shared projects. Human observers were added to research teams. Not as equals yet, but no longer as subjects. The door had opened. On Earth and its colonies, the story arrived in pieces. Most people did not know Kyle's name at first. News reports focused on diplomacy, on reduced patrols, on new talks. Only later did quiet articles mention a human engineer and a simple device. Kyle himself returned to his assigned station within days. It was a plain structure filled with old equipment, half-updated systems, and long work tables. He put his vest back on its hook, logged his field notes, and went back to work. No crowd waited for him. No medals were offered. A few co-workers nodded at him with new respect, but no one made a speech. Kyle preferred it that way. He spent his days repairing sensors, improving tools, and writing careful notes about systems that failed in gentle ways. Sometimes he was asked about the encounter. He always kept his answers short. I did my job, he would say. At night he would sit alone and review designs. He thought often about how close the moment had come to violence, and how easily it had turned another way. He felt no pride, only responsibility. Others would learn from what happened. Some would try to copy it. Some would misunderstand it. That worried him. Across the galaxy, engineers debated simplicity. Many had long believed that complexity was safety. More layers. More power. More control. The human approach challenged that belief. It suggested that understanding mattered more than strength, and restraint more than victory. Saren followed these debates closely. She requested access to human technical journals and studied their language. It was direct, almost humble. Humans wrote openly about failure, about designs that did not work, about lessons learned the hard way. This honesty surprised her. Months later, Saren visited a joint research site. She walked through human workspaces, noting the lack of ceremony. Tools were worn. Labels were simple. Engineers argued freely, even with those above them in rank. Problems were shared, not hidden. She met Kyle again by chance in a long corridor. They stopped and regarded each other briefly. No guards intervened. No tension rose. You look well, Saren said. Kyle nodded. So do you. They walked together for a short distance. Saren spoke first. Your people have changed many minds. Kyle considered that. People change themselves, he said. We just give them reasons. Saren smiled. I once believed power had to be loud to matter. Kyle shook his head gently. Quiet things last longer. When they parted, there was no ceremony. Years passed. Humanity did not rise suddenly to dominance. There were no great conquests, no sweeping victories. Instead, there were invitations, shared projects, and quiet influence. Humans became known as problem solvers. When systems failed, humans were called. When talk stalled, humans listened. Some still laughed at their simple tools. But fewer did. Kyle grew older, still working, still designing. His device was refined and adapted, but always with the same principle. Ask first. Strike last, if ever. He never patented it for wealth. He shared it freely with those who understood its purpose. Saren rose in rank, her leadership shaped by the lessons she had learned. She taught new officers to respect what they did not yet understand. To pause before power. To listen. The galaxy did not become peaceful overnight. Conflict remained. But the shape of it changed. Strength was no longer measured only in force but in choice. And somewhere on a quiet station, a human engineer continued his work, knowing that the greatest change he had made could not be measured by systems or shields. It lived instead in the way others now paused just for a moment longer before choosing how to act.